You're listening to the TV Obsessive channel, presented by TVObscast.com. Okay, welcome back to the TV Obsessive podcast. Here today for episode 52. Always, I'm Cameron Crane, executive editor of TVObsessive.com, joined by Ryan Kirksey, writer and contributor for the site. How are you doing today, Ryan?
I'm doing really well. Today is turning out to be a very good day, and I'm hoping that continues that way. We're going to talk about something I hope we don't get in trouble for. I don't think we will, but
We'll be
we got
we'll
some
be
sensitive
careful.
things to
We'll be
walk
careful.
around.
We'll be careful.
Yeah.
It'll be fine. What are you talking about? Anyway, yeah, with the latter part of the pod today, we're going to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm, episode 2 from this most recent season, the last season, season 12, called Lawn Jockey. Ryan, this will be your choice for episode of the year as defined by how long we've been doing this podcast.
But how long have we been doing this podcast? And we're going to dive into maybe what this says about me. This is one of my favorite episodes of the year. We'll see about that.
Yeah, psychoanalyze you a little bit on the couch. Anyway, as per usual, first we'll talk a bit about what's been in the news pertaining to TV. It's May 31st, Ryan. What caught your eye this week?
Well, how about a third trailer for The Bear? This one gives us a little bit more, a few more morsels of food to figure out. We learned that Carmi's got some non-negotiables. We learned that there's still a lot of tension, and we learned that Carmi's girlfriend's going to be back in this season.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. But yeah, the other ones were more like teasers. This is more like a trailer. That was like an amuse bouche. This is a appetizer.
Right.
No one can resist food metaphors. Anyway, excited for the bear. I don't know what you thought about the trailer. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to like dig into it in detail, and maybe we will in a few weeks as we ramp up to season 3 a little bit more. I don't know if that's something you want to do. Personally, I always, with trailers for shows that I already know that I want to watch, part of me is just like, I'll just wait for the show,
Yeah.
But I did watch it, and I'm like, okay,
I,
gear
I
up the
will.
excitement, but you can start digging into it and be like, let's speculate about what's going to happen. And like,
Yeah, I don't think any real speculation is needed. Rather, just sort of again be sort of washed over with the enjoyment of how the show will land. I almost found myself not liking the fact that we saw Molly Gordon as love interest. We saw John Bernthal. I guess that's to be expected. He's been in every season, but it sort of ruined the fact that okay, this is these folks are back. We'll get that surprise out of the way. But yeah, not too much talk about it other than they're just going to keep giving us something every week. I think until our appetites are taken care of by being to watch this show in like June.
yeah, it's true. I mean, I know what you mean. Claire's in there. I'm glad Claire's in there.
Yeah.
I'm on the record defending the character of Claire, and personally hope that they reconcile. But that's always a little bit of a spoiler. I don't know if we're getting exposed. Maybe people haven't seen season 2. Apologies to the world. Anyway, I mean, if you haven't watched the show at all, how spoilery is it to get, some of this stuff in the ether?
Exactly.
Anyhow, so yeah, The Bear, there's a trailer, season 3, June 27th. We'll definitely be talking about that on the podcast. Looking forward to that. Coming a little bit later this summer, another returning series that caught my eye. Did you ever watch Pachinko?
Nope. I was looking at this after you sent this link over. I remember hearing about the show, but had forgotten just how much or how many awards this show won. This is maybe something to need to check out because this looks very interesting. Apparently, there's going to be a second season.
Yeah, August 23rd, second season. I'll put my cards on the table and be perfectly honest. I watched the first 3 episodes of season 1, and right when that came out, I did this thing to myself, working for TV Obsessive and running it and so on, basically. And I was like, I'm going to write on the premieres of a whole bunch of new shows. And because I did that, I didn't have the time to like keep writing on any of them. And it was like, oh, this is maybe not the best idea. Anyway, there's an article on the site around the first 3 episodes. And it's really good, So with season 2 coming out, I do find myself thinking like, okay, well, a little bit of time here. Maybe I should go back to season 1 and prepare for season 2. And I don't know, maybe even potentially write on season 2 week to week. It does look like they're releasing it 1 episode a week, which is nice.
Okay. And it does seem to me, having not seen this show before, this is a multi-generational, multi-language show. So this is not a second screen type of show, as I understand it.
No, I mean not unless you are fluent in like Korean and I don't know what all languages are in it, but yeah, if you have to read the subtitles, you have to, attend to that as it were. I think some of it's in Japan and multicultural thing, of course, and the title comes from the game Pachinko, which people are familiar with. Um, the opening title sequence for the show is like great and a lot of fun, and then the show is often it's one of these things where there's a mix of there is humor or levity or what have you, but there's also like drama and sadness. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you
Yeah.
cry.
Yeah.
It'll make you read subtitles. Pachinko. Anyway,
I mean,
as you mentioned, one of us awards and stuff like that. Like it's a really high quality
yeah,
show.
I was gonna say they released a whole series of sort of pre-production photos about the second season. They look, I mean, gorgeous, very cinematic. Looks like a very well shot series.
Yeah, it is for sure. So looking forward to that. What else we got? Other things on the radar coming up here you want to mention?
Let's see. Things upcoming. My young son will be very happy to learn there is a Minecraft series coming to Netflix in
Yeah, I
addition
saw this.
to a Minecraft movie that's coming next year, the Jack Black Project. So I don't know how these things are interrelated or connected, but all 10, 11-year-old boys out there are going to be very excited to see Minecraft, I guess, coming
Well,
to Netflix.
that was my question. My question was, will they? And like
Yeah.
maybe you could provide a closer lens to that. Having a young son and so on. As I do not, I do know that there's a huge fan base, and I do know young boys in particular. I don't know if it's like
Yeah.
super
Yeah,
gendered.
I shouldn't be specific. I know
Um,
plenty of both genders that play Minecraft. This has certainly permeated the youth, as it were.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I'm pulling, we're both pulling for personal experience, and that's what I'm thinking of too, is in particular like 10-year-old boys, but no, not at all trying to claim the gender. But I've known various children who really love to watch like Minecraft walkthroughs or what, like they can put on YouTube and watch someone else playing Minecraft for hours, right?
Yeah.
And of course, I'm old and think that that's weird, and I don't understand why it's entertaining. But that's definitely a really different thing than watching a TV show or a movie. And it makes me wonder if actually the attempt to make it more, um, I don't know, official, refined kind of story will diverge from what the fan base enjoys. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm
so I will
curious
say
about that.
two things about that because I sort of had a couple of initial thoughts on this, having have a lot of experience to this in our house over the past few years. Number one, Minecraft being one of these sandbox games where you can basically build and do whatever you want. Yeah, you certainly lose a lot of the appeal of let me just tell you this story that we've sort of pre-created and programmed into this when you can't build or explore or create or do the things that you want to do within Minecraft. I do in a small sense, never would sit down and do it myself, certainly, but do in a small sense understand a lot of this video watching is watch what I do here, and then at least in my household, it's let me go try to recreate that or learn something or do something from that,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, this TV series and this movie just sort of take those experiences away. So will it have the same type of audience the game has? I guess that remains to be seen.
Yeah. It remains to be seen. We'll see how they market it though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely, you can understand why they're doing it because this is one of those things where the level of popularity, but this has been for years now. It's almost surprising they haven't done it already. There's merchandising, there's
Yeah.
toys,
Oh yeah.
and all of that that
Yeah.
go beyond the
And
game.
to that end, so we have a lot of Minecraft Lego sets in our house. And even the Minecraft Lego sets, you can build different things, right? You're not limited to just the one
Yeah,
thing. So it's sort of always been this experimental creativity side of things. And yeah, it'd just be interesting to see what they do with a television show.
yeah, it will be because that was one of the big things that came to mind for me insofar as I am familiar with Minecraft, the openness of it, and then obviously this is going to be more constrained or delimited or whatever. You got to tell a story, and um, so we'll see how that goes. I mean, I guess we could seg from that in terms of like making
I,
your own thing.
I was just gonna say,
Yeah, this is a good seg. Yeah, not planned, but anyway, what did you think of it? Did you read this article? So apparently they're releasing or have released or made what they're calling a showrunner, an app that allows you to create your own TV series on animated TV series by putting in prompts. It's an AI thing. Apparently, they have some stuff in the style of South Park. Obviously, I have thoughts about this that you could predict some of. What are your thoughts, Ryan?
Well, so let me give you one initial thought, which is I read this and they're just sort of parsing through what some of the quotes were, what they're trying to accomplish, what they've done already, what they plan to do. On more than one occasion, the people part of showrunner said that they've built this program to be the Netflix of AI. And I wonder what Netflix thinks about being lumped into this. Like, we don't want anything to do with this whole thing that this battle was just fought over last year on rights and artificial intelligence and all of this. I maybe like you am going to remain extremely skeptical on A, if this works, B, where's the line drawn when you start infringing on certain things that people are not going to be happy with. I mean, it's going to be somewhere. They've already started to ruffle a couple of feathers with its similarity to South Park, as you brought up. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, I have like three thoughts. Maybe in this order. First reaction: no, this is terrible. This is unethical. Okay, Trey Parker and Matt Stone sue. Can we like shut this down?
Yes.
And I'll avoid going on too much of a rant about that. And I don't know, my kind of negative sentiments about AI in particular. I just whatever. But the second, and maybe this lands in a more interesting way. This doesn't appeal to me at all.
Yeah, same.
Right. So like, does this appeal to people in general is a question I guess I have. I personally, I have absolutely no desire to make my own TV series by putting in prompts, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder if I'm weird about that, because I know I'm a little weird about it, because I never particularly liked even the idea of going to Subway and having to tell them what to put on my sandwich. It's like, you make sandwiches. Like, you tell me what's a good sandwich. Chef, restaurant, you know what I'm saying? But that might land more broadly for people with TV. I do think that it's like, no, look, what I want is an artistic project that some other human being has carried out that might strike me as novel and interesting and expand my horizons or whatever. The idea of putting in prompts to have a machine make something for me really doesn't appeal to me.
Yeah, and I wonder how much of it is, just these creatives that want to either produce television, produce animation, whatever their goals are. Is this a playground for them to create something that's something where they can produce something to get other people get feedback, whereas it would be too complicated or expensive to do it otherwise? I mean, I can sort of see the appeal if it's happening that way, but again, I'm not someone who's looking to create these types of things, so I just don't generally or personally see the appeal of it.
Yeah, and I guess it sounds like what they want to do is get a bunch of people into doing this, and you can play with it and make things for yourself, and then potentially other people could watch them through their site, and then if they're getting enough views, I don't know what exactly how that's supposed to go. That was I had a third thought that I didn't mention yet, right? I said three. This is the third one. So in general, it doesn't appeal to me at all. Like, I'm gonna make an episode of South Park for myself. If I put aside all of my ethical qualms and worries, and this includes, like the amount of water it takes to run an AI, prompt and all that kind of stuff. If I put all of that aside, there's some small part of me that goes like, could I use this to make things that are just like totally insane? Like that's the only thing I can think of would be kind of fun. Like, can I just give it like incredibly batshit prompts, and like maybe that would create something kind of interesting.
I can't see why not.
But I don't have a particular interest in doing that at all. It's just kind of like the only level where part of me thinks like it part of me thinks that it could be a little bit fun to play around with for an evening or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
It is
yeah.
what it boils down to. You're not going to actually create something of value in this way, I don't think. But
I did find one quote very interesting that this guy Sachi, who runs Showrunner, admits that it can't create an episode with long epic story arcs like Game of Thrones or Breaking Bad To which I say, A, good, and B, let's hope it never gets to that point. I mean, this is what we just again, that's what we just fought battles over less than a year ago.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. But you know, the biggest thing is as I pay attention to all this AI stuff, and the biggest thing that keeps disturbing me about how it seems like they want to put it in everything. Like, have you seen stuff from Google in the past couple of weeks? They put it in the Google search engine, and
Yep.
but Google wasn't smart enough to avoid pulling from the onion and stuff. So it's like telling people to eat rocks.
Yeah.
And that
They're
thing keeps striking
scrambling to
me.
go remove the onion AI
The thing
relationship.
keeps striking
Exactly.
me like, is this technology as it currently exists actually good at anything? It's not good at providing information if it provides some false information, like even a little bit.
Yeah.
No, right? You know, is it good at producing art? In my opinion, from everything I've seen, no.
Yep.
Is it good at producing writing? No. You know, like at best, it produces something at the level of a low quality college student essay that you want to give an F to. You know,
Yeah.
it's like I haven't, and so I don't know. Actually, my call out to the world is this actually good at anything? And like, let me know what it is. Like seriously, if you like, I'm a computer coder, and you know, it's actually like really helpful,
Yeah.
or anything like that. At this point, I actually want to be told some area where it does something well, because I just don't know what we're doing otherwise.
I don't either. And if you have to tell it or program it to not pull information from the Onion or the Babylon Bee or other places, then it's not very intelligent artificial intelligence to me.
My favorite one, I think, was the one that suggested putting glue on pizza so the cheese would stay on the pizza.
I mean, don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah, indeed. And then like Google comes out like, well, we can't fix it. We don't know how to fix it. It's like, well, remove the feature. What are we? You know,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
really interesting. I feel like tech people are so taken by what they see as the potential that they're not quite thinking about the user case on the other end. And the Google thing in particular, if I'm looking for information through Google, the most important thing is that it is like accurate, good information. That's
Yeah.
the most important thing. So just corrupt that, whatever.
Yeah, it's fun to laugh about it now when we'll be, crying about it 50 years from now when we have an AI created apocalyptic scenario going on in our world. We'll just, remember the good times.
That's what I'm saying. But my worry is getting to be not that it is so good that it will take over everything, but that powerful people are so taken by it that it will take over everything, even though it is idiotic.
Yeah.
You know, um,
That's what the AI wants you to do, Cameron. It wants you to doubt it. Keep doubting it.
all right, all right, fair enough. What else we got? A couple more things here.
Yeah, let's see. Things something that just ended. I have not seen, despite this getting increasingly good reviews every season. I've never seen an episode of Hacks on HBO, but this is apparently a comedy you and I should be paying attention to because the day that the third season ended, it got a fourth season renewal. Gene Smart is apparently electric and amazing in this show. And I don't know, we spent a long time on Righteous Gemstones. Maybe we should give this a try.
Yeah, I think we should. Everyone keeps talking about it. I did actually. I watched the first episode at one point. It was good.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I feel like, oh, I'm going to make excuses for myself. I just didn't watch anymore. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I have no, justification for myself. But yeah, people have been talking about it really since it began. It's been kind of on my radar um, as something to watch. And having watched the first episode at one point, I did think that, oh, this is quite good. And just had other stuff distract me, I guess, from it, and I've never gone back to it. But renewed for season 4. That's good. That's great. Gene Smart's great. I love Gene Smart.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And apparently these last two episodes of the third season were the most viewed of that series' entire run. So I mean, it's not something that's plateauing. It's something that's growing every season that it's out there.
Yeah, which is interesting. from what I know about its premise and so on and so forth, like where exactly does it go? And that was the thing, right? When I say I watched the first episode and didn't continue, for me, there wasn't something that hooked me about it. It was that was like, oh well, I need to know where this goes. It was
Yeah.
really kind of a stage setting. Oh, this is pretty funny. It's well acted, and all of that. So probably need to return to that one and watch some more. Further down the line, probably even than that, they've announced as of today, I guess, that they're planning to make a TV series, probably a prequel series, in relation to the movie 300. Thoughts on this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, a
Have you
lot
seen
of
300?
yeah, I've certainly have seen Gerard Butler 300. Did not watch the sequel. That was not, I heard,
Same.
worth watching. I hope they have a large spray paint budget for the abs they have to spray on for all of these episodes. You know, I think that was the big thing, right? The how awesome everyone's abs were in 300. But no, this is just sort of coming out today, and as you said, likely a prequel series to the wildly popular graphic novel and then movie. Yeah, so not don't know too much about it, but just that's interesting that they've found enough, I guess, material and enough interest from somewhere to put this thing together. I didn't quite see who's putting it together. Is this an
I,
HBO?
I was going to, yeah, well, it says Warner Brothers TV, so whatever that's HBO or Max probably, or I mean,
Yeah.
in theory, it could be TNT or something, I suppose, under the Warner Brothers brand. This does seem very early on, probably at the level where it might not even end up happening. So, I don't know, fans of 300 don't get too excited. But I thought it was worth noting. Because for example, if you read this Deadline article, it sounds like it's at the level of they're hoping Zack Snyder will be involved. So
Okay.
it seems like it's very kind of early stages, but they've announced that they're developing it. So something to keep an eye on. And that could be fun if you're into muscular, shirtless Spartans
Yeah,
um,
I seem to
fighting
remember,
around.
wasn't 300 sort of praised for it was for its some type of cinematic style. I'm trying to remember exactly, but just had a very unique way of shooting that movie, right? This was I don't know exactly what the style is, but it was well done. I mean, I remember really enjoying that movie and sort of stopping with my intention to watch any more after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't quite know how to describe the style other than invoking the name of Zack Snyder, because that seemed distinctive. It was um, I want to say overblown or something. It was very large, um, slow motion, all kinds of stuff. Anyway, people
Yes,
probably seen 300. If
absolutely.
not, I don't know, it exists. Um, it exists. You could watch it.
It exists. It's worth watching. Yes.
And yeah, the
Uh,
series might be coming down the pipe, as it were.
what about sports corner for the week? We've talked about Hard Knocks before on this podcast. We actually
Yeah,
just talked about the new version of Hard Knocks coming out, the off-season version coming with the New York Giants. Now we know the flagship Hard Knocks will have starting on August 6th, the Chicago Bears and number one pick Caleb Williams. This is a good choice for you. They've apparently never done it before because the general manager hated the idea, but now they're open to it. So
yeah.
thoughts on the Bears, your rivals on Hard Knocks?
I think it's pretty exciting. And you know what? If the GM really didn't want to do it, he should have fired the coach.
Yeah.
By rule, first-year coaches can't be forced to do it.
Right,
Right?
right, right.
That's an interesting situation to me that they kept Eberflus on as coach, but fired the offensive coordinator, got rid of Justin Fields, drafted the rookie quarterback. We'll see how this goes. I mean, the Bears are an intriguing team for this year. Everyone expects that they're going to be better. Um, but they weren't that bad last year. I think they won seven
No,
games or
no, they
something,
were
7 or 8 games.
not bad as
Um,
well, especially defense.
so yeah, I mean, I think it's a good choice. Do you agree? I don't know who else I would choose.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms of the Caleb Williams angle. He's, as you probably know, not the most milquetoast #1 pick we've ever had before, right? Won a Heisman Trophy 2 years ago, came out with some, I don't know if you would actually call them controversial, but the sports media complex deemed him to be controversial because he would cry after games and paint his fingernails pink and spend a lot of time hugging on his mom and all these different things that they sort of had to point to when things didn't go quite his way. Now he's a #1 pick, going to be certainly the star of Hard Knocks, so should be at least intriguing to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, side plug for the Pablo Torre Finds Out episode where they talk about crying in sports.
Okay.
It's pretty good. They're like, because Caleb Williams was kind of the jumping off point, but that was a good episode of that. I have no problem whatsoever with him crying and
Yeah,
being hugged by his mom. It shows that he cares.
exactly.
Like,
And if you think these NFL teams don't do copious amounts of homework on these guys before they take them with their #1 overall pick, then yeah, you're sorely mistaken.
yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. You've got Caleb Williams. You also got Roma Dunze, who's a rookie, who seen some things with him at the combine. He seems like a charismatic guy. And then, of course, other players have been around for a while, and all. It's a good show. It's a good show. Who else you
Yeah,
got?
yeah, it's gonna be good. I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Yeah. So sticking with sports, I guess I continue to just like binge watch secret base videos. I think I'm
You're like, yeah,
almost
you're like a tier A member now of Secret Base. I don't know if they've got your credit card, but
no, I haven't signed up. They started the Patreon recently, and I haven't signed up for it. I feel a little bad about that. Maybe I will at some point. Um, I'm just going through old YouTube videos. I've started to exhaust what interests me because I'm not particularly interested in baseball. There's
yeah,
not baseball stuff. Other people might be interested in baseball. But I
I
mentioned
always I
before,
always knew there was something wrong with you. But proceed.
yeah, I'm not really a baseball fan. God, it's kind of boring. Come on. Um, but so I mentioned before on here watching like the history of the Minnesota Vikings and things like this. I probably should have mentioned, although I don't know, maybe I just wasn't quite on top of it. So Secret Base is the name of the YouTube channel, and I guess the overarching brand, and then they have distinct shows underneath that brand. And
Okay.
like the history of the Minnesota Vikings is Dorktown,
Okay.
Wordsworth. So anyway, because particularly this past week I discovered the fumble dimension. And the idea of the fumble dimension basically is that they try to break a video game.
Try to break a video game?
Basically, I mean, it's like I guess John Boyce did this thing maybe 10 years ago or so called Breaking Madden, which I haven't seen. But the fumble dimension is somewhat inspired by that. So I watched a couple of things this past week. One was they tried they took the 2008 Detroit Lions, who never didn't win any games. They went 0-16, right?
Yeah.
And in video game form, using I think Head Coach was the name of the video game. They saw if they could win more than 0 games by running one play for the entire season. So they did it, right? They created their own pass play to Calvin Johnson, and they called that play every down, including fourth down, for the entire season. So stuff like this.
So,
Um,
so you've watched every episode of every television series ever now. Now that you've moved on to this, is what you're telling me.
no, I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there that is on my list that's more along the lines of like a proper television show, I suppose.
I will admit that what you're describing sounds much more entertaining than some of the things I've seen recently.
It's just it's like low stakes stuff, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
it's in the same kind of category for me as watching game shows or whatever else, you know,
Yeah.
sports talk or something. But well, I mean, I guess like the Dorktown stuff was more like watching a docu series, you know.
Yeah. That I will admit that there may be some of those I have to check out because I'm kind of on a weirdly no real direction to it kick on documentaries right now. So that's something I may have to check out.
Yeah, that's just that stuff I can like actually legitimately recommend. The fumble dimension is just kind of silly. Like this is just it's just ridiculous stuff. There's a couple basketball ones I watched too, where they're like, we wrecked the future of the NBA, and they go in and they program it so that every rookie has like the lowest possible stats in every category. Um,
Oh my gosh.
anyway, it's pretty fun. What about you?
Yeah, so after watching through quite a bit of Mindhunter, I got kind of on a docu-series true crime kick, and so I finally caught an HBO documentary that aired again, another one of these right in the middle of the pandemic, called I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is based off of a book that Michelle McNamara, who is the wife of Patton Oswalt, wrote about
Right.
a prolific rapist and murderer in California in the 70s and 80s. There's some real tragic stuff in this story that is extremely compelling, which I will not spoil, but this only 7 episode documentary really focuses on not just trying to solve a seemingly unsolvable case, but also what the obsession of that type of thing and trying to get that done can do to someone. So it's got an interesting angle that you don't normally see in a true crime documentary. And so just found it very interesting, just plowed through it, and was one of these kind of on every list of the best crime documentaries that exist, and found it extremely compelling.
Wait, now, so
And
it's a doc. You keep saying it's documentary. It's a documentary, not a fictionalized series.
it's a documentary.
Okay.
Yes, it is absolutely documentary. Everything in there documented happened. There is some, creative license taken to sort of recreating some things that obviously they don't have footage of from the 70s and 80s. Amy Ryan from Sugar and from
Hmm.
Office fame is the narrator of this documentary. So just very well done. And if you're not familiar with Michelle McNamara, Patton Oswalt, the story of this, getting this book published, this series published, and the search for this killer, which I was not. It's quite shocking and very interesting to just plow through.
Oh yeah, we have to check that out. I vaguely recall when it came out. The title rings a bell and all of that, and but I haven't seen
Yes,
it.
six episodes, June and July from 2020. So I mean, it's one of these that probably like Tiger King or something caught fire because of what was going on, but I just had not seen it until now.
Cool. Yeah. And that's HBO.
HBO, yep,
All right. So
on Max to view right now.
I'll sing on that. We mentioned Phantasmus, I think, last week when the trailer came out.
Yes,
So I am going to write on it. I've seen the first episode at this point. HBO was nice enough to give me screeners. I think it's really good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's
yeah,
definitely weird.
you wrote a little something for the site already. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I wrote a little rec in our Larks and Rex article that came out today. It's kind of a brief review. The preseason review embargo was yesterday, and I just watched it and I liked it. So I thought, I'll write a little bit something, and then I've got my recap for episode 1 that'll come out after it airs on June 7th. So it's not out
Okay.
yet. People can't watch it yet. Apologies, but um, I really like it, Ryan. You told me that you
Okay.
were going to follow my lead, so
I am.
now I'm telling you to watch it.
Okay.
There's a chance you will not like it, and that's okay.
I'm prepared. I'm prepared. I'm willing to give it a shot based on your recommendation. So June 7th, I'll be there.
It is weird. It's a weird show, but it's my kind of weird. I
Yeah.
like it.
Yeah.
It's a fun watch. And there
Last
is.
last thing for me, and this might actually end up being weird, at least in a different kind of way. This is released this week. The Eric show, which we talked about, Benedict Cumberbatch, is now on Netflix. It's going to be I'm taking a day off on Monday. It's going to be my long weekend watch. This apparently is quite a very deep, dark look at what it's like for someone to have a child go missing, to be under the suspicion that you may have done something. And I'm very excited for this. I've kind of purposely avoided a lot of the reviews and even just sort of analysis of it, just so I can be surprised one way or the other. But yeah, this is something I'm gonna binge this weekend. Eric with Benedict Cumberbatch on Netflix.
Yeah, and a puppet.
And above it, yes, apparently he's a puppeteer, or that's
Yeah.
his job.
There's sort of what's the thing. There's also puppet in there's at least one puppet in Phantasmos.
Oh, so there's
There'll
the plural.
probably be more puppets. There'll probably it's that kind. This is what I'd say about Phantasmos. When I say it's maybe not for everyone, there are sequences that are kind of like just fantasy
Yeah.
sequences. It's just like vignettes that fill up the episode, and I don't know. I enjoyed it a lot, but it's a distinctive kind of show, and Eric looks like it will be too, at least through the puppet of it all.
Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Look, I'll give my thoughts on that one, at least in audio form next week when we get back together.
Cool, sounds good. All right, well, ready to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm?
I am. I've been looking forward to talking about this at length with you.
Cool. So we're going to dig in on Curb Your Enthusiasm, season 12, episode 2, Lawn Jockey. So back in February, on February 11th. So hopefully people have seen it. Spoilers will be on the table on the other side of a brief musical interlude here, and we're going to dig in on the Lawn Jockey.
Okay, we are back to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm, episode 2 of season 12, Lawn Jockey, which aired in February 2024, written by Larry David and Jeff Schaffer. Should probably more accurately say story by Larry David and Jeff Schaffer, and directed by Jeff Schaffer. In this second episode of the last season, after being arrested for giving a bottle of water to Auntie Ray, who was in a voting line in Atlanta, Larry David is released from prison, plans to plead guilty so he can put everything behind him. But his Atlanta lawyer, Joe, looks a lot like Mocha Joe from season 10. Larry hates Mocha Joe, so he eventually fires him after he starts talking to Larry about his coffee. At their Airbnb, an offensive lawn jockey in the front yard is there that Larry and Jeff break, so they are set out on a hunt to find a new one, with Leon joining them so that Susie does not have to pay the security deposit. It's also Susie's birthday. Jeff takes Larry's advice to buy her 2 gifts in case she doesn't like the first one. The guys finally track down through a very interesting set of circumstances where they end up, find out how to track down a new lawn jockey. They make their way to Auntie Ray's church cookout so that she can introduce Larry to all of her church members. Auntie Ray's nephew gives Jeff all the leftover ribs, but finds the lawn jockey in the back of their car, infuriating everyone at the cookout. Because of this, Larry decides to plead not guilty and stay and fight the Georgia election law. Okay, so
some little details and things you glossed over that maybe were just
yeah,
slightly inaccurate or something. But anyway, Leon also was involved in the breaking of the lawn jockey.
that's right. That's right.
3 of them.
He's a part of that whole thing. He's involved in the breaking. He's involved in the searching. He's
Yeah.
involved in so much of this, which actually I'm glad you brought up Leon, because it lends itself to a question I want to ask her about this show in general, which is about sort of the less scripted, more improv style of it. I mean, clearly this now after 24 years is a show that's come to its end. This was a great show in terms of the improv, because you clearly get these pieces in these episodes of Curb Your Enthusiasm. They're completely improvised, completely just sort of outside and unnecessary to the story. There's one here with Leon where they're driving and they're looking for a lawn jockey, and he starts talking about, why do we have just lawn jockeys? Why not lawn lawyers or lawn dentists? All these things that, yeah. So, and you can tell based on the reactions, the authentic reactions from Larry and Jeff while that's going on. This is just, I mean, something that's causing them to break. This is not part of what the original intent was, but they leave it in. So I guess I say that to say, you've seen a lot of seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. The improv style, do you think, this is something that I guess heightened the quality of this show? Do you think we'll ever see anything like it? What do you think of the improv sort of way that they approach this?
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is central, I think, to how the show functions. which, as I recall, the very first episode wasn't even an episode, it was a special. It was almost like a faux documentary. Man,
Yeah,
I
I think
haven't watched
so.
that in years. I wonder
Yeah.
what it'd be like to watch that one now. But it started in that way. And I've got some behind the scenes knowledge going on here. Apparently, this was Jeff Garland's idea. And it was almost a happy accident that he found Larry David to do it
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
initial uh, kind of special, and then it became this series. Of course, took on a life of its own. Anyway, I mean, the improvisational style, I think, coupled with the fact that so many characters play themselves,
Hmm.
not everyone, but centrally Larry David, who is playing a version of Larry David, right? Like Richard Lewis plays a version of Richard Lewis.
Right. Right.
They're not actually themselves, but they're sort of are. Um, will there be anything like it again? I mean, I don't know. It depends what we mean exactly. I mean, I think
Yeah.
you could take that kind of style and you could look at how they made it and to make something similar. And then I don't know if it would feel like too much of a knockoff, or maybe it would just feel completely different because different people are involved to such an extent. I don't know. I mean, I think they play with stuff like this a little bit on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, but not to the same extent.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have always, I think, appreciated not only that they were able to sort of take that path and do that, but put as much of that as they possibly could in each episode. This very much became a vehicle for just Larry David saying, we just want to do the things that we enjoy doing. And so this improvisational style, which led to conversations like the one we're talking about, always left in, it also leads to the whole storyline with him using the restroom in the store.
Okay.
And that has zero to do with anything in the rest of the episode or moving forward any plot, but it's clearly something that's been on Larry's mind that he thinks is a ridiculous issue. So he wants to put it in an episode and just sort of see where it can go. So that's just sort of was I think the two things made up the genius of this show for so many years.
Yeah, and the Leon, let's talk about Leon more. Sorry, I totally fumbled that sentence, but let's talk about Leon a little bit more and JB Smoove. I read this kind of long profile of JB Smoove maybe a couple months ago at this point. I don't know if you read this. I could probably find it. Um, but one of the things they were talking about was how he ended up on the show and auditioning for the show. And there were interesting details of kind of coincidence or serendipity or whatever that factored
Mhm.
into him having the opportunity. Um, but apparently, many people who auditioned for Curb were surprised to learn that they would be auditioning with Larry David.
Yeah.
Um, but JB Smoove came into the room as Leon
Okay.
and proceeded to make Larry David just crack up. Like there's like, who is this guy? You know, and if you think about Leon, who's been on the show now for quite a long time, um, I do think it's a real kind of turning point in terms of what Curb Your Enthusiasm is and the
Yeah.
energy that he brings to the show. And certainly that plays a really big role in this episode we're talking about. I mean, I don't think you could do this episode without Leon.
Yeah. And it got me thinking about it. So Leon came in the show in season 6. He is part of a displaced New Orleans family that Larry and Cheryl take in after
After
uh
Katrina.
Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. Um, and so he and his family sort of play a role, and that was like back in 2007. So since then, he's been a
Mm-hmm.
part of this show.
Yeah, I saw that season when it was airing.
Yeah.
And then he
And
just won't leave. He just
they
becomes
won't
this
leave, and
fixture.
it hasn't really been since that season that I think focused as much on race as they did in this final season, right? And particularly in this episode, particularly in how they focus on this commentary about the Georgia voting laws. And so it kind of made me wonder. He's not been afraid to tackle any topic, but it almost seemed to you like this is a message I want to get across in this last season to make sure I say something about these things I think are that are ridiculous before we're off the air forever. I went back and looked beyond the season, I think it was season 3 or 4, where Larry goes to Broadway to star in a show with David Schwimmer. It's always been in LA. And then this last season, large pieces of it take place in Atlanta. So it's kind of like, what was that? What was that decision? Why do it that way? And why focus on this one particular issue? They've never been afraid to do it, but the sort of presence of Leon, his family, and combined with these sort of serious issues made it I don't know, an interesting way to send off the show to me.
Yeah, I mean the broader context of the voting law in Georgia, which is a real thing. I was reading just today that apparently in New York they just decided that the similar law is unconstitutional. It was
Mm.
also against the law in New York to give someone water and while they're waiting in line.
Yeah.
The difference being that in New York, it was one of those things that was like, this is a law from 1920 for some reason, or whatever.
Yeah.
And whereas in Georgia, it's like they passed that law a couple of years ago. So it's interesting context. And yeah, I mean, but in terms of what you were saying, I mean, I don't know how much of a point is being made. Part of what's almost refreshing about the kind of way that Curb Your Enthusiasm finds to deal with some of this stuff to me is that um, it doesn't feel like it's beating me over the head with a point, like a moral of the story. Um, but Leon's definitely an opening for that, for sure.
Well, and that's what I think. I'm glad you said that's one specific thing, because this has always been a show about the things that Larry finds ludicrous or absurd or just have no point or no meaning. Just the whole rants about high occupancy traffic lanes and all sorts of different things that they've covered over the course of this series. But this became like, this is a commentary, it's a real-time commentary on what's happening in our country. And before it was just it's idiotic that I can't walk into your store and use the bathroom. And it's sort of they blow it up and magnify it to this real sort of real time focus on things that are going on. I don't know, obviously it's intentional, but intentional for a reason to do this in the last season, sort of say goodbye with this issue. I just found it interesting. And yeah, Leon and his family is sort of the vehicle to be able to do that.
Yeah, and Larry respects Leon.
Yes.
It was part of what makes their dynamic so great. I don't know why I'm feeling compelled to dig into this a little bit more, but with the going to the bathroom in the store thing, it's Leon who first says to him, he's like, "Well, you're gonna have to buy something, and that's going to be the rule. That's how it works,
Yep.
right?" It's
Yep.
like Leon knows how it's going to go almost. And I was like, "Oh, really? We'll see about that." But maybe because that also does feed into part of what ties that together with what happens with regard to his court case is the way that he's shaped by social pressures.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and I don't know what you think about that, but at the beginning of this episode, he's totally planning to plead guilty.
Yes.
And he's like, I'll plead guilty, get this over with, I go home, and everything else. And he actually seems to still be thinking that throughout the entire episode until that moment in Auntie Ray's cookout.
Yeah.
And because she wants him to plead not guilty, right? So I thought you were fighting for social justice, Larry. So even though all throughout the episode he's being praised by Bruce Springsteen and stuff, and he thinks that's pretty cool, he's kind of still planning to plead guilty, and then ultimately at the end,
Yeah.
kind of pressured into pleading not guilty with no
he,
lawyer.
he's fine to get all of the accolades and all the praise, but doesn't want any of the work or advocacy to have to fall onto him. He's great being a local and national celebrity, but yeah, to actually have to do some work to fight for something or to work to change something, no, Larry's never interested in that.
Yeah, yeah, it's not as, and it's interesting dynamic, and then the lawn jockey itself. I want to think about how this plays. Part of what I think is interesting is Larry shows up at the Airbnb and he sees the lawn jockey. He's like, "What is that?" Right? He's offended, at least recognizes it as offensive,
Yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
want it to be there already. And then, of course, when Leon shows up, redoubles that. But there's not really any kind of like statement about why it's offensive or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah. And some of the few minutes of digging that I did is that the lawn jockeys, at least the way they have evolved over the years, we see the one in the show, the older versions of them had characteristics that would be much, much more offensive and much more blatantly racist than the one that we saw there in the show, which still is certainly offensive and certainly is something that is shown as this object to stand for something. But yeah, they were evolved from something that was from a time that used those in a lot of offensive ways.
Yeah, and it's all kinds of stuff like this. I remember being in a thrift store in Tennessee, was visiting Tennessee, and this was, 15 years ago.
Hmm.
So it wasn't like right now, but 15 years ago was still
Yeah.
pretty recently, just like looking at these salt and pepper shakers and stuff like this. There's like, yeah, there's a name for this kind of stuff, and it eludes me what I'm talking about. People probably know what I'm talking about. You live in Texas. Is that that kind of stuff in Texas? I don't want to, assume one way or another, but I've never been to Texas.
Yes, as I've traveled a lot in Tennessee, I've traveled a lot in Arkansas. A lot of these states, there's city Texas and there's rural Texas,
Yeah,
and they are very, very different places for the most part. So yeah, you'll still see these types of things from time to time.
interesting. Because even in Michigan, Ohio, certainly in New York City, when spending time there, no, right, and I think that's part of how Larry reacts is just like viscerally you can see that this is like that's a no,
Yeah,
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 but culturally there where they are in Georgia, maybe not so much, or it's more complicated. It is
yeah.
rather funny when they're going around and he's trying to get lawn jockeys from people like at that point where they're seeing them in people's yards. And he's like talking to some guy with a baguette. He's like, "Well, this is where I forget what he says, his sister, maybe." He's like, "She's an avowed racist," you
Yeah, I'd like to kill. Yeah,
know.
for she's an about race. Oh my gosh. Just I mean, that's one of the things you love about this show. I wanted to bring up an episode is it it is something where Larry got to the point where he just did not care who I don't want to say he didn't care who he offended. He's not trying to offend anyone, but he's not going to care if he is talking about the right things or if he is focusing on things that shouldn't be on television. If he's got an idea about something and the way that it should be and the way that it should work or the way that things shouldn't happen, he's going to go that direction. And it just became compounded year after year after year with the series, which made it even better.
Yeah, and there's something ridiculous to play with here. I don't have a line on this, but so they break the lawn jockey, and then of course they've got to replace it so that they don't lose the security deposit, and there's all of that, right? But then they can't find one. This scene at the store where you mentioned the guy working at the store is Lionel Boyce, who's Marcus and the bear.
Yes.
It's a great little scene, but I thought this was quite funny because the store, it's like the Home Depot or whatever, sells white ones,
Right.
but then it's quite awkward when Larry tries to, yeah, maybe that are maybe a
And then
little.
asking if they have any black paint.
No, we don't have. And that was I couldn't help but think throughout that scene, like, do they really not sell black meat?
Yeah, of course they do. Of course they do. No, but I did chuckle for a number of reasons at that scene. I think that Larry purposely found his complete opposite, right, in Lionel Boyce, right? Lionel is huge and bulking and I mean intimidating, standing there with his arms crossed the whole time. Talking to Larry is like find his opposite and make that be the guy that Larry has to confront. I mean, again, just more sort of nuance that brings out these stories.
But he's also soft spoken and professional, and I mean, but just kind of it probably adds to the humor, but in the character of Larry David on the show, it also
Yeah,
fits, I think, that he doesn't fully explain himself in that
right.
scene. He could, but it seems like he
Yeah.
just not gonna, He's like, ah, no, it's not, I got to replace this. Oh, so you already had one. You know, it's like,
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
I'm not getting in all this, you know.
Well, let me also ask you, because so much of this episode focuses on a storyline revolved around Susie. It's her birthday. She's the one that's making him go look for this thing. I've read things that talk to people that eventually Susie really started to grate on them. Like they just got to the point where they could not stand
Eventually,
her character. Yeah. So I want to get your thoughts on Susie, because I mean she is meant to serve a purpose in this show, is to be the foil, obviously, to Jeff and to Larry, to be this loud sort of chalkboard scratching character that grates on them. So thoughts on Susie as you've seen some of the more recent things
I,
here.
I mean, I kind of thought she was always that. The important flip side is that she is also almost always correct.
Yes, yes, correct.
You
Yeah.
know, so like, um, she functions in that way. I always felt in the show, you know, I mean, some things are maybe, uh, I, I wouldn't say, well, she's right about Jeff not being able to do other stuff on her birthday or whatever, but
Yeah.
you could, yeah, it makes a, you know, it makes sense, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
but with a lot of
I've
stuff,
always loved her as a character. And I just I understand just sort of the, oh, I can't take so much of that. That it's she served a very important purpose in my mind of being a specific thing on that show.
she's like consistently calling out their shenanigans, and she's generally correct, you
Yeah.
know. So I don't. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get down on Susie. Is she potentially grating or whatever, or she's yelling at people? Yes, I think, you know, kind of aesthetically or what have you. But I think it's important to
Her and Larry's
generally right.
arguments, her and Larry's arguments might be some of my favorite all time parts of this show over the 12 seasons of 24 years. I mean, just some of the things I would love to revisit.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't done a Mocha Joe yet, have we? You mentioned in your summary of the
Joe,
episode. What do you think about the fact that they did this with the lawyer that looks like Mocha Joe and it's the same actor and all of this?
yeah, at first, and I have to say, maybe even the second or third time that I've seen it, couldn't quite figure out why they made that decision. For those that are not familiar, Mocha Joe is a storyline from season 10 where Larry wants to open up a rival coffee shop to Mocha Joe because he and Mocha Joe got into a disagreement about the things that he was ordering and the quality of his products. So this sort of hatred towards, this animosity towards Mocha Joe carrying over into a character that's supposed to look just like him, and by the way, is played by the same actor
Mm-hmm.
who played Mocha Joe. Um, I, I couldn't quite understand what was the, other than let's just bring something back. What is the reason why we would do this? Because it doesn't, I was gonna think it doesn't serve the purpose of making him make a decision one or the other, whether he's going to plead guilty or not guilty. It doesn't, um, he's not in there more than this one episode this season. So what was the reason other than let's just revisit something?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it does give Larry a reason to fire his lawyer. Not necessarily a good reason, but one that we can relate to. We can understand, though, Larry David would do this. I just can't work with this guy. He reminds me of Mocha Joe
Right,
too
right.
much. Just can't do it. And if you think about the rest of the season, that opens the door for a bunch of other stuff in terms of um, him having to find a new lawyer. And there's the whole storyline with the man. What is that guy's name?
Yeah, from Will and Grace.
Yeah, the guy from Will and Grace.
Yeah,
Um,
I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but yeah, his they're trying to figure out what to name his son, and his last name is Mantle. He wants him to name his son Mantle.
yeah, that whole storyline, you
Yeah,
know. So I can see it in terms of the narrative structure of the season, how it functions, right? That
yeah.
potentially he starts out, Jeff has found him a perfectly good lawyer, right? And they'll take care of it. And, you know, Larry can plead guilty, get a slap on the wrist, go home, story's over. But he fires that lawyer because the lawyer reminds him of Mocha Joe.
Yeah.
That allows for some kind of callback. There's some humor to that. And then it also means that by the end of this episode, he's pleading not guilty as pressured by Auntie Ray and so on. Where I don't know, maybe this lawyer Joe would have kept him from doing that, but he
I think
didn't.
that's a good guess. Yeah.
And then he has to find a new lawyer, and we're down the path to all this other stuff that comes later. So
Yes. His lawyer becomes Christopher Mantle, whose partner's last name is Zeckelman, and the Zeckelman Mantle family is trying to determine whether to name their adopted child Mantle or Zeckelman. And yeah, Larry cannot fathom the thought of them naming him Zeckelman over Mantle. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it just becomes a pathway to deliver more of these guest spots, more of these characters, more of the story that will come later on. And like you said, circling back to a lawyer would have talked Larry out of pleading not guilty to this thing.
in all likelihood, yeah. As we
Yeah.
talked about before, I fell behind, and the first time I watched this episode, I wasn't familiar with Mocha Joe. I went and watched some clips on YouTube and stuff like that. I probably could have watched just full episodes, but I didn't know exactly where they were or whatever. Anyway, I familiarized myself with Mocha Joe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so I think it works. You know, you have that seed of animosity and use the opportunity to bring back another actor who's been in the show
Yeah.
previously and so on. But
It is sort of a good representation for so much of this show is Larry would be able to succeed at things if he was only able to get out of his own way so many times. That so much of what happens to him is not all the other people that he disdains and thinks they're so awful. It's what he does. And this is just another representation of that.
yeah, and particular things he can't get over, right? Like in the season premiere where he's been the whole reason he's in Atlanta is to appear at this guy's party and he can't get over the whole nickname thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, little things like that. But then these other moments where he is like he's successfully pressured in this episode by the salesperson at the store to buy that jacket.
Yes.
Um, he gives the jacket to his friend from jail who gets arrested for wearing the jacket with the tags on it. It's all these little moments.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's humorous stuff. It's a good episode.
Yeah, it is. It is good, and there's so many. I think from the 10 episodes in the last season, there were some real classic things, some good callbacks, some things that we could have gotten into that were much more even more offensive, more controversial, more that have been difficult to talk about on a podcast. But this is one I think just really encapsulates the spirit of what this show was, what the Larry, Jeff, Leon relationship is, and just how Larry had just spent 24 years with us getting involved in these things and of his own doing and not being able to find a way out.
Yeah. Anything else you want to dig into? What does it say about Ryan that Ryan chose this episode from the past year? Did you have other contenders in
I
on
think
your
that
list?
I don't know that I considered much else. I think we've talked for a couple of weeks about, I would have included 2 or 3 episodes of The Bear, but since we're just about to talk about The Bear, I didn't want to go that route. I think just if I psychoanalyze myself, one of the reasons I always was attracted to this show is I often find myself having very strong opinions and thinking things should be a certain way, but I am the anti Larry David when it comes to confronting people about when I see these types of things happening. And I've often looked at myself saying, oh, that's sort of an idyllic state for me to be able to go and speak my mind like that. But that's just in real life, that doesn't seem to be who I am.
Yeah, I'm very similar throughout the course of Curb Your Enthusiasm. I found that I very often agree with Larry David, and the difference is um, I'd let it go, I'd swallow it, I
Yeah,
wouldn't push it or whatever. But the thing is, Ryan, if the show teaches us anything, we've got better strategy. We've
that's
got
right.
better life strategy because the show's constantly like, you can't let it go. He's pushing it. And,
That's right. That's
you
right.
know, bad
Oh
stuff
yeah.
happens.
Not Larry's way of living is not necessarily the way I want to live. So that's a good lesson after 24 years of watching it, I guess.
Yeah, there is something funny about seeing him do it. Um, So good. A couple things in here we maybe didn't hit on as much as we could have. I don't know, the two gifts thing. Um,
Yeah, not a strategy I've tried before, so we'll just
one
rely.
one one point of clarification in terms of how you put it in your summary, at least is how I read it. It wasn't that he got her two gifts in case she didn't like the first one. It was buy her two gifts. And if she likes the first one enough, then you return the second one. But if she seems like she not so
Yeah,
sure, like it's enough, then you give her the second more
yeah.
expensive gift. It's
No,
like,
don't
will
worry,
the cheaper
I got
gift
a better
do
one
it?
coming.
Which,
I mean, it's actually a good strategy, one that's tricky to deploy, I'm sure, but not one I've tried myself.
no, it's not a terrible strategy if you play it, if you pull it off with sufficient tact or whatever, which they don't because there has to be a ring camera and Susie sees that
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
second gift and all of that because of course she does. Um, but yeah, so Curb Your Enthusiasm's over. We had briefly on here before about reacting to the finale. Don't need to go into that again.
Yeah, one of these just again cultural touchstones for so many years. There'll be some imitators of this over the years. I'm sure there'll be some things that try to replicate it, but getting this level of I think authenticity and humor will be tough to duplicate.
My bigger question almost is, will Larry David go on to do something else?
I have the same question. Yeah,
You know, if he's done with Curb Your Enthusiasm, they really did end it pretty definitively, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he can always just say, "Hey, we're going to make another season anyway," you
yeah.
know. Um, but does he have other projects in him that'll pursue moving forward? Seems like maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, he's only 76. He's got some years left in him.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's not. He could,
Yeah.
I just don't know. He's been doing this one for so long, so we'll see. Anyway, been a pleasure talking about this episode with you, Ryan. We're
Yes,
going to move
sir.
on from here for the next couple of weeks to choose our favorite shows from the past year,
Yeah,
right?
we're on now again from one episode to an entire season or as much of a season as we can encompass from the past year. And you have picked one I probably would have picked, but we're gonna let you have it.
Stole it.
So what are we gonna talk about next week?
Now I chose first. So I guess I was at the ready. Um, we're going to talk about the curse, and I think that should be interesting to dig into a bit more than we've had the chance to previously.
Yeah.
We've talked about it a little bit before on the pod, but go into some depth. I don't know that we'll take the time to be rewatching every episode in the next week, but spoilers will be on the table, so people will join us for that.
Yeah, and I would say, I know you would give this show the highest recommendation. I would say it's definitely worth using your free week of subscription to Paramount Plus to binge it before we talk. I think it's worth worth using it on this show.
It is, but also, right, I almost can't imagine binging it. I mean, I watched it week to week personally. Um, and then I recall writing something like about the point of it being to make you suffer. Um, anyway, Curse is really good. People are familiar from Nathan Fielder, Benny Safdie, Stone's in it. Yeah, you can check it out on Paramount Plus with Showtime. I think Showtime was the branding on this one,
Oh
but
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
regardless. Um, so we'll talk about the curse next week. In the meantime, you can check out TVObscast.com. You can find articles on the curse there. I did write something on the finale of Curb Your Enthusiasm. There's some other little stuff about Curb Your Enthusiasm you can find on there. Any number of articles about other TV shows. Hopefully you'll check it out, poke around, follow TV Obsessive on social media. If you enjoyed the podcast, please do leave us a good rating and review on the YouTube channel. Press that subscribe button, give a thumbs up, and so on and so forth. And we'll see you next week.
All right. Looking forward to it. See you then.